Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Everything Zen, where we cover everything in the Zenescope universe, from Belle the Beast Hunter to Dorothy and the Wicked Witch of Oz, everyone's favorite archer, Robin Hood. This is Zenescope, and Everything Zen is your Everything Zenescope podcast. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and I know this may be a little shocking. We've actually got back-to-back podcasts in the same week. I know, the new format we've rolled out actually gives us the opportunity to be a little more flexible, keep you on your toes, the latest and greatest from the pop and comic culture universes. We've got some amazing Zenescope artists and creators coming up soon that you'll absolutely love hearing from. We'll also be bringing back the podcast Word of the Month to give you, our faithful listeners, the opportunity to get some free Zenescope goodies. For now, though, we've got a special guest waiting in the wings. Our featured guest on this edition of Everything Zen is Kari Matchett, an award-winning Canadian actress who got her big break with a leading role on the Norman Jewison First Nations drama, The Res. Since that time, has developed a career spanning multiple decades, working on the USA spy drama Covert Affairs, the critically acclaimed Nero Wolfe mystery series on A&E, and Civic Duty alongside Peter Krause. She's appeared on 24, ER, The Good Doctor, Charmed, and Supergirl. She's worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, from Charles Bronson to Jane Seymour, Brian Dennehy to Jennifer Lopez. This month, she stars in The Night Agent, which makes its premiere on Thursday, March 23rd on Netflix. Based on Matthew Quirk's best-selling novel, The Night Agent follows a low-level FBI agent who works nights in the basement of the White House, manning a phone line for undercover spies that never rings. But one day, it does, and it sets into motion a chain of events that uncovers a conspiracy that reaches all the way to the Oval Office. Carrie plays the president, and she joins us to talk about The Night Agent, acting presidential, just like many esteemed actors from Meryl Streep to Daniel Day-Lewis. We talk about action thrillers, her connection to music, and her upcoming role in the 5th season of the hit series Fargo. Kari Matchett joins us right now on Everything Zen. Kari, thank you so much for joining us. We're extremely excited to have you here with us on Everything Zen. So welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I'm really excited to discuss The Night Agent, your latest project on Netflix that looks absolutely amazing and releases later this month on the 23rd. But before we do that, I'd really like to get to know a little more about you and our listeners to know more about you as well. So, born and raised in Saskatchewan and growing up in Alberta, Canada, what was life like for you growing up? Were you artsy and into acting as a kid?
Well, the first part when I lived in Saskatchewan, I was there till I was 7. So it's sort of in that perfect childhood time zone. So I don't know if I will say this, definitely in my kindergarten class, I had a thing about doing what I do now because I was obsessed with the song Delta Dawn. Are you familiar?
I am.
Okay, that's, great song, Tanya Tucker.
Yeah.
I sang that song for just constantly. And then I created a band with other willing or perhaps some unwilling people in my kindergarten class. And I even had a manager, Bradley.
Wow.
Yeah, it was our manager. And we performed Delta Dawn, only Delta Dawn, but we performed it.
You got to go with the hits.
Exactly. And and so I think I had like a thing about performing and stuff, but I certainly wasn't. And we did, I did tap dancing and we sang and stuff like that. But I spent a lot of time outside, and growing up in Spalding, Saskatchewan, there's a lot of space for your imagination too. So I think it all sort of, I think I was sort of, I don't know. And my mom was a singer, so maybe I was just naturally given to that stuff. But I think the environment itself also just helped me be who I was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Were there any particular films or performers that have been influential to you, both as a young person as well as throughout your career?
Probably in the early days, as I said, Tanya Tucker was definitely the person I really loved as soon as Grease came out was Olivia Newton-John.
Yep.
I was obsessed with Grease. My cousin and I had like every single thing that you could possibly have with the word Grease on it, like Grease pajamas. We had Grease cards. We pretended to be in the movie. And so, and then I fell in love with the way Olivia Newton-John sang too. So I loved her so much. So that was an early childhood influence. And then when I was 12, when I really decided to become an actor, then I started falling in love with people like Meryl Streep, who I still love, and I started looking at like people who were brilliant at what they did. Then
at 12, I can barely remember what I was doing at 12. So to have made that decision.
Yeah. It was clear. It was like the cartoon light bulb moment, the moment the light bulb goes off over your head. It was that.
It hits you when it hits you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Norman Jewison has an incredible body of work. I know you know this. For our listeners, it includes In the Heat of the Night, Fiddler on the Roof, Moonstruck, The Thomas Crown Affair. How did you land one of the main roles on The Res, which is a TV series produced by Norman Jewison, right out of the starting gate of your career? And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was so cool because we were shooting in, first of all, it's always an amazing thing to get like the first regular role on a television series is like a dream come true. Truly, like I never thought this day would come. I hoped it would, and now it's here, and it felt incredible. So on every single level, the freedom, there's a big, when you're a regular on a television show, you have a lot of input in that process. And so it was exciting to be in that position. And then also we shot in Northern Ontario, and those people that I shot with, two of the women I'm still really, really close friends with. Jennifer Podemsky and Tamara Podemsky. In fact, I'm going out for dinner with Jennifer tonight. And so it was, I don't know, it was just, I felt lucky, and it felt timely, and
you turned a corner.
Yeah, it was a turn. It was a turning of a corner at that moment. It's really true. It was. I haven't thought about that for a long time, but yeah, it was. It was one of those moments where things start to shift.
Well, and also early in your career, you got to work with folks like Jennifer Lopez and Ethan Hawke, Brad Pitt, Charles Bronson, Peter Krause, Dennis Hopper. Obviously, there's a high degree of professionalism that goes with acting, and these are your working colleagues. But have you ever had an out-of-body experience on set working with someone you admired so much where you almost had to pinch yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I have to definitely, if I'm going into work with somebody whose work, I apologize for that noise. That's the tree trimming out front. It's crazy.
Can't even hear it.
Okay, good.
So we're good.
But for me, it's more of I have to prepare myself mentally if it's somebody who I really, really love and admire, because I've seen their work before working with them. I just have to put my game brain on and do the work. It just becomes about doing the work, and then it's okay. But when I've just been living life and run into somebody, I'm a mess. Now they don't exist anymore, but at a video store in LA, I ran into Helen Mirren, and I couldn't speak, and I had to turn around, and I went and stood in a corner.
But if you were on set with Helen Mirren, you would have been
I would have had time
focused.
to prepare mentally. And then, like I said, it becomes about the work, and you just have to focus. And, and I know I would behave in a much more graceful way, and hopefully, just be there working. But yeah, when it comes upon me unexpected, I'm just a mess, and I'm a silly fan.
Yep. There's a super fan in all of us. Was there anything in particular that you learned from watching all of these talents over the years? For instance, I know you collaborated with Timothy Hutton on several occasions, from Nero Wolfe to Leverage. Anything that you learned from him? Anything you learned from any of these other folks?
Yeah, there are. And I would say, you would learn something different from everybody, and Tim is a great example of this. The thing that I'm reminded of with people who have made incredible achievements in this industry and do incredible work there's a kind of a singularity, a single-mindedness about them, and also an unrelenting nature, in that I've witnessed that what they want to happen, they make happen. They're not worried about pissing people off. Not that they're unkind. I'm not saying that at all. But you can't worry about being everybody's best friend if you're trying to make a good product sometimes, because you have to clear the deck in order to make what you want happen. And sometimes there can be a lot of opposition that way.
Absolutely. That's what passion is. If you're passionate and you care, that's what you expect, as opposed to, oh, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. And, I think growing up in the prairies in Canada and being a good Canadian prairie girl, I was always taught to be a good girl. Right. Yeah. And so for me, it's sort of been a lifelong journey to trust myself and to stand up for myself, not being a jerk, not at all, because I'm all about being kind and being around kind people and being fair, but standing up for yourself and standing up for your vision. And if you feel like you need to do something artistically in that moment because that's what's right for the project, or that's what's right for the character, standing up for that. And that's what I see consistently with high-level performers, is they're brave humans as well.
Almost secretly, I'm told by your reps that you will be in Fargo season 5, and you may not be able to say much about it. We know that. I absolutely love Fargo, and I'm sure our listeners do too. We know that it's going to have this incredible cast, present company included: Juno Temple, John Hamm, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Is there anything that you can tell us about season 5?
Well, what I will say, apropos to what the last question was, is the majority of my work was with Juno, and she was an absolute dream to work with. She's a great example of being so good at what she does and being also so kind and lovely and generous to work with. She was a pleasure and a real inspiration that way. Yeah. I wish I could tell you stuff about this show, because I was so thrilled with the writing and the work, and I think it's going to be an incredible season, but they will take my firstborn if I say anything.
They'll take you to the wood chipper.
Yeah, exactly. Out there in the woods.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Saskatchewan girl there. The 4th season of Fargo was the first season of the show that didn't take place in Minnesota. Chris Rock's season was in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
Can you even tell us if the 5th season will follow suit with that, or will we be back in Minnesota?
Let me just say, while we were shooting, it was cold.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Mental health affects so many variables in our day-to-day lives. How we think, how we feel, and how we act. And it's important at every stage of life, from childhood through adulthood. Fortunately, to help us navigate all those waters and improve our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, there's BetterHelp. It's all one word. That's better, H-E-L-P. At BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues, and it's 100% online. You just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then, you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. And the best part, you can message your therapist at any time. Schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. And if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked just for you. More scheduling flexibility and at a more affordable price. Visit betterhelp.com/Zenescope for 10% off your first month of therapy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist who will listen and help you today.
Well, throughout your career, you've been involved in a lot of sort of action crime dramas like 24 and Covert Affairs. Tell us about The Night Agent and what makes it different from others like that in the genre.
Well, The Night Agent is a real political, it's not unlike 24 in that there's a kind of a time's ticking. We don't have a lot of time here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to get done, and there's major bad stuff that could go down if we don't get this done in time. So actually, it's quite similar. It's in terms of that kind of pacing and on the edge of your seat as 24 was. I actually have high hopes that people will love it like they love 24. It's really smart. It's really fun, and it's really exciting.
It also has a little bit of a Bodyguard feel to it from what I've seen. There's a little bit of that.
Yeah, it probably does. Yeah.
And it is episodic. Is it 8, 10, kind of in traditional Netflix fashion?
10, yeah.
10?
Yeah.
Were you familiar with the novel by Matthew Quirk? And is the series faithful to it?
The series, it definitely is the novel is sort of a guidepost to the series, but there's a lot of things that are different, including my character. My character, I play the president, and my character was a Black man in the novel. So that's different. Yes.
Well, you're in great company, by the way. I mean, you got Daniel Day-Lewis, Morgan Freeman, Gina Davis. You mentioned Meryl Streep, and Don't Look Up, she was president. How and what did you do to prepare for your role? And did you learn anything about the presidency that you didn't know before?
I learned a lot. And I really used Obama as a guidepost in the kind of president I thought my president was. And in terms of, when we didn't speak political parties, that wasn't mentioned or anything, but just in terms of where I was coming from, the things I wanted to achieve and the kind of person I was, I modeled myself after Obama. And so I read Promised Land, Obama's latest, and was really moved by it. And I think, we've heard all about the kind of frustrations that he went through during his presidency, but reading about that in a more in-depth way was really informative. There is only so much you can do as a president, and yet you can do a lot. And you're certainly the figurehead for a lot. So it was really important to me to have a real clear understanding of what I was trying to achieve as president in that world.
If you were president, would you get rid of daylight savings time?
I absolutely would.
Looking back from where you are now, what's been your most memorable project and why?
I have so many, I feel like my career's gone through so many different, as one's does, if you're at it for the long haul. But I feel like the most exciting part of my career was really the shift. But there were two. It's what you mentioned before was the shift into doing film and television as a leading character, getting great roles. And really, when I did the rest, that was when I started making a living. That was the time where I stopped waitressing or bartending. And it was a
confidence boost.
Yeah.
Hey, I really can do this.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think those things happen when you decide. In my experience, it happens when I decide to make it happen too. I was ready to not ever waitress again at that point. I didn't want that to be my life. And I was ready to take on the responsibilities and the intensity of having being a regular and taking those kind of characters on. So that was a really exciting portion. And then the next big exciting portion of my career chapter was when I moved into doing bigger American parts. So I moved to, transition into doing film and television in Canada, but then moved from Canada to doing it in the States, which is, it's a bigger arena, obviously. So that was really exciting when that started happening.
What's more prestigious than an Oscar? If you answered Zenny, you would be correct. The votes have all been tallied, and the second annual Zennies will be broadcast live on Thursday, March 23rd, 6 p.m. Eastern on Zenescope's Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube channels. The best of the best. You can stop by and see if all your favorites take home the big prizes. You also won't want to miss Elias Chadzudis' 2023 Zennies collectible covers, hot off the red carpet. Mark your calendars. The 2023 Zennies are coming Thursday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. There are many mysteries hidden within the powers of the Black Knight. Peyton Parks returns to Camelot to keep those secrets out of the hands of the malevolent Morgan Le Fay. With the fate of Camelot and Wonderland hanging in the balance, the next harrowing chapter in the legend of the Black Knight continues with Myths and Legends Quarterly, Black Knight, Legends of Fate. Releasing on Wednesday, March 29th, along with issue number 70 of Grim Fairy Tales, which has Skye and her allies battling an evil that the world has not seen since the dawn of man. They drew first blood. Not me. Watch the movie that spawned 4 sequels, an animated television series, comic books, video games, and even a Bollywood remake. That's Rambo First Blood, our movie of the month for March. Interact with Ralph, Brian, Marilyn, Casey, Noah, and the gang on March 22nd as they discuss one of Sylvester Stallone's most iconic roles, a film that helped revitalize the cutlery industry in the 80s due to the display and prominent use of all those knives. And don't forget to stick around for Sun Kumanaki's Movie Club collectibles. And lastly, March is well known for its madness, of course, but it's also a great time to do some spring cleaning. That's why here at Zenescope, we're right smack in the middle of a week-long spring cleaning sale. Stu and his warehouse crew are trying to make some room and move out all kinds of excess goodies, from metal cards and books to regular and Z-rated art prints. And oh yeah, we've even got a mystery box coming. The Zenescope spring cleaning sales run daily through Friday, March 24th.
Is there a big difference between Canadian television film production versus US?
Well, I think the work is always the same. It's like no matter who you're working with, if I'm working with Helen Mirren one day, or if I'm, working with somebody who's just started, like the work really stays the same. It is sort of interesting. What is different is if you're working on a big budget show that has very experienced people working on it, you have time to explore things. You have understanding that if your prop isn't working properly, that there's know-how how to fix it. There's going to be time to fix it, and then that's important. Whereas if you're working on something that maybe
lower budget, you're going to be holding the lights.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if the little spring doesn't work in the spring loaded whatever, you're going to have to just keep going and pretend that it does, right?
Yeah.
So those are the difference. It's like the luxuries. It's like flying, on a nice airplane in the front of the plane versus in the back of the airplane, and kind of, you still get there, still the same, but it's just a little nicer, a little more luxurious.
What US project was it that kind of was that sort of transitional point for you?
I was cast. So with Tim has always been an incredible champion for me. He really has been incredibly generous, and he's done wonderful things for me. But we were doing a mini series for sci-fi. It was a long time ago, and that was good. But during that time, I auditioned for a pilot, or somehow I think around that time I'd gotten an American agent who was wonderful, and then he got an audition for me for a pilot. And they decided they wanted to test me. And so they flew me down to LA. And then I was the only person that they were testing. Like somehow they were just suddenly very interested in me, which is what happens when, I think the mini series, I'm working with Tim for the 10th time. And then, and then my agent was all like the perfect sort of bubbling effervescence to kind of create interest in me. And then I ended up getting the pilot, and the pilot was playing Stanley Tucci's love interest, and Stanley Tucci and Bobby Cannavale were brothers. And it was this pilot written by this wonderful writer with incredible showrunners, and shot in New York for CBS. And then I think that it never went, ironically, which is just crazy. But I shot this pilot in New York, and then I got a visa, an American US work visa, and then the insider, just started rolling a little bit.
Looking ahead, what type of role or genre would you like to get into and explore that you haven't? What are some of your current acting goals?
I would just love to play a queen, do some sort of big British, like Philippa Gregory novel, adapted to a screenplay or to a television show, or, I love Game of Thrones, but to be honest with you, that kind of thing is a bit dark for me.
Yeah.
I could not stop watching that thing, but I had nightmares for months and months and months because of it. Oh yeah, no, I get scared with those things. So something not quite so dark and like nightmarish. Although I would not say no if I was offered something like that. I couldn't. But yeah, Queen, I would love it. That would be very exciting for me to do that.
Last question for you. What are your absolute favorite things to do when you're not working?
I love spending time with my son. He's 9. And He's my favorite person. It's I just love spending time with him. So we go for hikes and we do art projects and we play music together. And I just cherish every second I have with him, because I know he's going to become a teenager soon and he won't want to have anything to do with me. So
for a short while, just for a little while,
right,
and then they come back.
Yeah,
so
I've heard. So I love that so much. But I love, that being said, I do love to play the guitar. And I'm a runner. I love going for long runs also. And I love doing yoga and spending time outside. Nature's my drug. I love it.
See, music hasn't left you, thanks to your mom. See?
Yeah, coming back around. Delta Dawn.
It is. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us here on Everything Zen. Congrats on securing the office of presidency in the Night Agent and being what they say in Fargo, a smooth smoothie. We can't wait to see both and lots more from you, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Don't miss a very presidential Kari Matchett in The Night Agent on Netflix. First of a 10-part series drops on Thursday, March 23rd. And you can see more of Carrie in Covert Affairs and Civic Duty, which are streaming right now on Amazon Prime, as is her ACTRA-nominated performance in Maudie alongside Ethan Hawke and Sally Hawkins. And that'll wrap things up for now. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all again next time, right here on Everything Zen.